We have no public input, and we had no requests for public input. We have no local board input. So the first item up is 8.1, and as per the message that we sent out yesterday, we will hear both items on CRL after each other, and we will then have the whole panel there for questions in totality. So we're not going to hear one and then hear another, because there's a very real possibility that the questions will fold into each other. So it gives you an opportunity to have the whole panel there. So first up is the update on where CRL is at. So Pat Brocky, Pat, welcome. Great to have you here. And John Bridgman from CRRL? CRLL? Either or. Tid, trick. Let's see. Righto, all yours. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chair. And Deputy Mayor, good to see you again. And councillors, it's a pleasure to be here, and also a special welcome to the new councillors this year. We, of course, appreciate your ongoing support of the project, which has always been very positive. We appreciate that. And I've got this mouse that didn't work very well last time, Chair, but we'll give it a try. Maybe I've got the wrong button. Here we go. An overview of City Rail Link is provided for the new councillors. That might be useful. A little bit of background about City Rail Link and City Rail Link Limited, Crown entity, the shareholding between the Crown and Auckland Council, 51-49. We have a sponsor group with Barry Potter as the sponsor representative. We meet regularly, and that goes very well. We've had multiple contracts, not just the large Link Alliance contract that gets most of the attention across the 3 stations and the tunnel, but there are early works contracts, C1, C2. As an example, we're coming up Albert Street, that's C2, and C1 was the work that we did under the Chief Post Office to put the tunnel in place. I won't go through each of those, but a number of contracts, not just the large Link Alliance contract that we have with the group outlined below, with led by Vinci, Solitage Barchi, Downer on the construction side, and with the designers ACOM, WSP and Tonkin and Taylor. Very strong, reputable international group of contractors and designers. We also established an informal alliance, we call it the One Client Alliance, consisting of ourselves, KiwiRail, Auckland Transport, but also involves Auckland One Rail as the rail operator, and AMAS, which is the maintenance contractor for Auckland Transport. And this was established for the purpose of assisting Link Alliance, creating one voice under the One Client Alliance to facilitate the discussions and collaboration and decisions going forward, right through to day one. And that One Client Alliance has been very successful, very strong collaboration amongst the teams, and we're very pleased about that. By way of project update, we are on track for opening the second half of 26, as it was just announced recently. Some of the challenges we've faced more recently have been productivity issues with systems. These are primarily the station systems, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, and all of the testing records and documentation that goes with that work. We've also tried to bring some of the work forward that might otherwise have taken place after we complete, particularly relating to testing of the station systems, and just running the volume of tests through the tunnel and the station, just trying to do as much of that as we can before we complete and hand over to Auckland Transport and KiwiRail. So per the recent announcement for the second half of 26, I can add that there are no showstoppers currently. There's just a high volume of work to get through, 16,000 tests in total, and we're a large way through those. Still a number of tests to go, and those tests remain remain challenging, but we're making good progress. As you can see from bullet point 3, actually those numbers are updated now. We've had 15,000 kilometres of the train running through the tunnels. 6,000 kilometres of those are actual test runs. The balance are just driver training, driver runs. Just completed our first emergency response desktop testing. This is working with fire, emergency services, police, and St John's. And that's also going extremely well. You'll be pleased to know we opened up in October the Beresford Square entranceway to the public, and that was nice to be able to hand that back for public use. And in the same way that we've just done that recently with Upper Albert Street and the buses coming down Albert Street, which was November 29. And we'll selectively continue to try and do that where we can as we complete the urban realm works around the stations. And as pointed out there, the urban realm works largely complete by the end of this year. Another opening, of course, is the plaza, the Waitemata Plaza. Works have been going on right next to the Britomart State, or the Chief Post Office, and those works have been going well. And I think we just reached completion on those. In addition to that, we've had a lot of train timetable testing. The last one, there was one in October, the last one was on November 22, 23. This is running trains at 18 trains per hour, which won't be the speed or the regularity that we will have when we open. It's higher than that, but it's testing at 18 trains per hour, and that was also very successful. We've got further testing coming up, which I'll talk about. This is a photo. The stations look completed when you see a photo like this. Not quite there, but this is a photo from Karanga Ahapi station, the platform there. It's looking pretty impressive. It's looking complete. But again, still some way to go. Additional works that are underway. The Henderson third platform is advancing well. Kiwi Rail is the lead contractor there, and Dave Gordon sitting behind me. He might give an update, but I think we're on track for completion in Easter. The paper project we talk about a lot, and sometimes within the project we call it the paper mountain. There's always a lot of paperwork with the works that you do. It's not just completing the physical works, but you have to ensure that you've got the paperwork to hand over to Auckland Transport and Kiwi Rail to evidence the completion of the works, that the testing was done, and you've got test records to evidence that, so we can open safely when we do open. The individual station systems testing commissioning is going well, probably over 80% now complete, and I'll touch on the integrated systems shortly. And emergency operations testing, I will also touch on that. That will commence in March 26, and that's running a number of emergency scenarios in the tunnels and stations. As with large projects, there are always cost pressures, but we remain within the funding envelope that we've been given, and we hope to stay there. But we will then see how things evolve over the next six months or so. But we are within that funding envelope currently. Then we're hoping to get through to opening time as outlined. The main objective for us is to hand over to AT and Kiwi Rail a safe and reliable railway. And we're very much looking forward to Aucklanders riding the train in 2026. Just touching on the remaining works that we have over the next 6 months or so. The first one in Q4 relates to the individual systems testing. At the bottom of the slide, I thought it was worthwhile to highlight some of those systems that we are working on, from building management systems, communications, CCTV, lighting, fire detection and alarms, and so on. So a large number of systems. It gives you a sense of the scale and complexity of the systems that we are implementing and testing. Additional resources have been required to add to the work there as things have evolved and additional work is required. Honeywell is our main subcontractor with the individual system testing, and they're applying additional resources to help us keep to the program. target completion for that is within January 2026. We then move to, rather than individual system testing, to integrated systems. There are different contractors with some of those systems, so it's ensuring that they all work together and they function together and they're stable. We can then allow AT and Auckland One Rail to do their own testing of those systems. Our target for completion of that is around early April, just before Easter. We then move to trial running and reliability running, and it definitely involves AT and Auckland One Rail and Kiwi Rail doing more reliability testing. There's a period of time required for Auckland One Rail to be comfortable with the systems that we're providing them, that they all function, they're stable, and they work well together. And that's also working well with the existing Auckland transport systems. The emergency exercises involve evacuation scenarios that will involve real passengers. At least they'll be passengers that we recruit, up to 400 people in a scenario. For example, when we evacuate the stations and tunnels in an emergency situation, there are approximately 20 scenarios that we will run through that process, so they are significant, and running in normal and degraded situations. And then finally, there will be the opportunity over this period to ensure that the staff readiness exists. This will be key focus for Auckland Transport and Auckland One Rail, and that includes the drivers and the station managers and so on, that they are comfortable with the new stations. At the bottom of the chart, you'll see some train timetable testing. We have further timetable testing at the end of January and also the end of March. This is running the trains to within the wider network and under the new timetable that we have. And then finally, to the right, the handover and completions. This is one that's often not given the attention it deserves, but this is ensuring that our partners have all the information they need when we hand over the railway, that the information about the assets, the paperwork, the financial information, the insurance, the regulatory approvals, which Council are helping us with, are all in place so that we can hand over to Auckland Transport and Kiwi Rail, and they feel comfortable to run the railway. I would add that the Council have been exceptionally helpful with the regulatory approvals. I have an example of a Code of Compliance Certificate, CCC in other words, or an EPA. There are a number of regulatory documentations or certificates that we need, and the Council have been very supportive. And then finally, it's just a closing photo of the recent desktop exercise with the emergency services. Other projects have become unstuck by not having good relationships with the emergency services. We do, and we're very pleased with those relationships. That they're going to be very important as we undertake the emergency scenario testing, as I mentioned, starting in March. But this is from the recent desktop exercise, and you can probably see that there's from this photo at least, very strong collaboration and teamwork. I'll leave it there, Chair.
Thank you, Pat. And just a reminder, if you're wanting to put yourselves down using Resolve for a question, go to 8.2, the next item on the agenda, because we'll be having the questions at the end of that item in regards, and for this one as well. Or if you're struggling with that, use the old-fashioned way of waving your hand around the place. Anything, John, from Dad? Okay, thanks, Pat. So what we'll do is we will now call up the team in regards to 8.2. So Dave Gordon from Kiwi Rail. I don't know if I didn't see Joe, but Jane, Mark, and Stacey, if you're all coming up, or don't have to if you don't have anything to it. I see Stacey looking around. But find a spot and we will move into 8.2, and then, as I say, we will have throw all your questions in.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Deputy Mayor, Councillors, Chair. It's great to be here alongside CRL Limited to provide this update. For those who don't know me, my name is Mark Lambert. My role is GM Rail Services within Auckland Transport. Jane Small, acting co-director for infrastructure in place at AT, and David Gordon, Chief Metro and Capital Programme Officer at KiwiRail. The purpose of this report is to provide you with an update of the enabling works that we're all undertaking in support of CRL Limited to ensure that opening of the City Rail Link that's in the second half of 2026. So building on Pat's earlier recap, particularly for those new councillors, in terms of what the CRL Limited project will actually give us, it allows us to actually recast the whole of the rail service network in Auckland and recast the rapid transit network as well, creating some new links to the bus rapid transit system, but also really obviously opening up in accordance with the benefits in the business case to whole of regional benefits through particularly cross-routing of rail services and looping in the Southern Line as well. So the map on the right gives you the high-level schematic of the service proposition which will be available when we open CRL. The existing east and west lines will combine to form that new, as you can see on the map, green line, which is the cross east-west service, which will provide those new connections and provide a single-seat journey, which is critical across the region in the future. Also, the existing southern line will be transformed into a loop under the city centre and connecting into the other lines, but also the blue Onehunga service will, through the off-peak period, run out to the west through to Henderson as well, so creating more opportunities for all of our existing customers. This overall creates a high level of frequency, as Pat's already mentioned, underneath the city centre of on opening. The target will be 4 to 5 minute train frequencies through the new CRL stations. The programme overall with CRL Limited is needing to bring together and merge 5 key activities to enable public operations. Construction completion, as Pat's already talked about, testing commissioning of the stations and of the timetable and of the train systems is well underway, and most recently in November we had the second round of high frequency train tests where we're operating up to 18 trains per hour at around a 3.5 minute headway through the stations. Rail network readiness, which Dave will talk about, is well on track to be completed by the end of January. And we're also well advanced on the wider readiness of the PT network. The new bus service connections and bus service timetables are all under contract and are progressively being rolled out from now through to opening of CRL. Customer information, we started through communication of the schematic for the services, and the next steps will be around communication of the actual timetable, the journey patterns, and also the opportunities for customers moving forward.
Good morning, everyone. I think a number of these key updates or key highlights that have occurred over the last few months have been outlined by Pat, but particularly for Auckland Transport is the return of buses to Albert Street, and that has freed up Queen Street, and it is delivering on the city centre bus plan. Just in terms of the network testing, and I'm going to just outline in a bit more detail. There's 2 aspects to testing that is taking place at the moment, and probably the reason for giving a bit more detail around this is that a lot of it is not seen, but it's a critical part of the project. So while a lot of a large amount of the construction has already occurred, you will have seen the precincts been opened up and the stations are developed, this testing phase is critical to the success of the project. So as Mark said, there's been 2 rounds of testing, one in October and one in November, and they're running 18 trains per hour. And the key things around that testing is to ensure that the trains can run to timetable, that they stop in the correct places, all of those types of things that enable an efficient system to run when CRL opens. That testing's been done in the early hours of the morning. I understand that there's about 570 coffees that have been consumed during that period, and it's been a massive effort for the teams that have been involved in that, and a strong collaborative working between CRL, KiwiRail and ourselves to make that a success. The second part of the testing is around the stations, and around this it's an integrated approach. So each system within the station needs to be tested individually, and then the combination of those systems. And what we're working towards is at the end of January a full network testing. So that's both trains and stations working together. And so that's a key deliverable for us at the end of January. So in terms of those systems, which many of you will appreciate who are involved in IT, those types of things, it's important that each stage is undertaken sequentially, because if there is an issue, understanding and going back and determining that is key. So again, it's a lengthy process, and as we've put in the slides up there, it can often be one of the most challenging processes, and we've taken that experience from overseas with Melbourne Metro and Sydney around the challenges that may come during that period, and we want to ensure that we get that right. So we need to take the appropriate time to ensure that that testing is undertaken in the right way. Just in terms of the fleet, you may be aware we've got 23 new trains. They have been produced in Mexico, and I'm really thrilled to say that the last train, 23, was approved to be released from the Mexico factory on Friday. So it's now making its way towards the boat. And we have 18, well actually as of last week, we have now 19 trains in service. There was one more, and the others are in testing and 2 are in transit. There has also been a significant modification of the existing fleet. The systems within those trains that we already have need to be adjusted and updated so that they are compatible with the systems that are being operated both on the track and within the stations. Just in terms of the sort of operational readiness, you'll see there the numbers in terms of staff that have been recruited and where that's at, and the training that is required to ensure that everything runs smoothly on day one and moving forward, and we're well on track with that training. You'll see that the train crews that are being employed by Auckland One Rail, who will operate the system on behalf of the PTCCO, they are 100% recruited, and there's also a large maintenance aspect that has been undertaken by Downer to ensure that the renewals and maintenance continue for running efficiently. And just in terms of the communications approach, you will have seen that we have started the communications around building excitement for the day one opening. As we move forward, we're moving more into a phase of assisting people to understand how the system will work. So that's around how to navigate the stations, what the timetable is, where the feeder bus services and broader network services are that people can connect into. And as we move forward, we will be moving into a series of day one activities on the opening of the station. And I will now hand over to... Keep clicking. I can keep clicking.
Thanks, Jane, and thanks, councillors. Again, to introduce myself to new councillors, David Gordon, Chief Metro and Capital Programs Officer for KiwiRail. I've been responsible for driving the upgrade of the Auckland network for the last 6 to 7 years, and very conscious that we have put a lot of commuters through a lot of pain during that process. But I think we'll show, hopefully today, and certainly with the opening of City Rail Link, that it has been welcome. I'll make a second point. There's a good reason AT and ourselves are sharing this desk here. We are working as one client, and over the next 6 months, increasingly we will be working to the timetable that AT are requiring for its training. We are joined up in these things. We are working as one, which is the only way we can appropriately do this. So first Christmas, it looks like a bit of attack of guerrilla warfare up there because we are working from Swanson through to Pukekohe. It is the final push on the major disruptive civil works, the last of our major dig-outs. If I start at the northwest and work my way through there, we've got a lot of work to have done at Henderson, and I'll talk about that a little bit further when we get to the point of this Christmas. We're digging the dig out of the Newmarket Tunnel, which I think I'd represented to previous committees was always going to be the last piece of work to be done. That's now engineering-wise signed off. Working right throughout each part of the corridors, power off, right through and allowing for AT to do its level crossing work. We've got some major renewals to do in the area between Otahuhu and Westfield. So right throughout the network, we are using the period of closure for that. The point that Jane makes is really important. We have to open this network on the 26th of January such that AT and AOR can test the timetable for City Rail Link as if it was day one for City Rail Link. So what we put together at the end of Christmas has to be as good as it's going to get. So it's a big task of work to do, and the putting back together is also going to be really critical. But for the project as a whole, being able to test the timetable in those next 2 days is critical. And I think I'd make the point that testing these things, in part, if you don't find something out, you probably haven't tested enough. So we are going to push extremely hard, but I can say the days of long weeks of closure, etc., are gone. Can we move on? So what are we doing? This Christmas, starting on the 27th through the 26th of January, full closure for Metro, apart from a small area in the middle for the last week. But the core thing there is 27th to 28th January, the network has to be ready as if City Rail Link was opened. In Waitangi, we've got a 3-day closure and a 2-day closure in February, March. And then basically it's partial closures for small works. Over Easter, we commissioned the signalling on the Eastern Line, which we finished physically almost a year and a half ago, but have not had the ability to bring signalling resources there because they've been deployed on City Rail Link. And then some works associated with Auckland Transport and the bridges. But basically it's testing. So that's when the network is closing as we get through to the second quarter of calendar 26. It's about testing the network. And it says there 13th to 17th of April closure. We may not need it. Testing goes well. We don't need it. We'll bring it back earlier. Just go on to what we've done. But it's been a lot of disturbance, so what did you get for your disturbance? Just taking these things each in turn. 70 kilometres of drainage so far. We have rebuilt from ground level up 31 kilometres, and we'll be up to about 35 kilometres of the network have been rebuilt, foundations dug out and put back together again. None of that is particularly visible to the travelling public, but all of it is essential if we're to have a network that is maintained. And I'm proud of the work that's been done in there because it's pretty thankless work and you don't actually see what you've done. 80 kilometres of rail been replaced, 55,000 metres of sleepers, that's 80,000 sleepers, a new in, 52 kilometres of ballast, and 218 turnouts have been refurbished or replaced. There's only 320 of the network and 70 of those are new. So basically it is a very new network in that area. All of that work is hard. As you can see, what we have to do on Christmas is not that big relative to what's been done. So we are very much at the end. All of those targets are tough for Christmas, but I believe they are all achievable. And then, particularly for new councillors, just to remind what's been done, what's in progress. So starting on the left, Papakura to Pukekohe electrification, done. Wiri to Key Park, done. Western Power Feed, the new Joint Operations Control Centre shared by ourselves, AT and AOR. 4 projects that Pat has referred to, funded by City Rail Link Limited, delivered by us. So Strand, Otahuhu, Newmarket and Britomart. Over Christmas, we have Henderson to complete the rail works. We will have the network in place that the timetable can be tested. It will take a little bit more time to get the platforms done, but again, it is essential for City Rail Link and will be ready for City Rail Link. And AT have the Church Street closure to do. For the rest of the projects, the southern stations, Drury and Pairata, looking at April 26, where we've got construction complete. Not essential for day one, but really desirable to have that there. So when City Rail Link opens, you actually have got the southern stations there as well. Ngakaroa is pushed out. Southern Power Feed, again, not necessary for day one, but necessary for the next tranche, and AT's bridges. The final point I've got up there, which is about the installation of additional safety equipment on our locomotives. We are putting a lot more trains onto the network as a whole, which just per force of that fact increases the risk of a collision associated with SPAD. Signals run out through danger, signals pass at danger. We are on target to have our freight fleet fully equipped with ETCS by the end of August, which is a very modest overlap with the timing associated with, we're hoping to get the station, the thing open. So again, we are meeting a statutory requirement and we will be ready. Jane?
All done. Okay, thank you, team. I don't know, Pat, John, if you want to come back up, because we'll throw open for questions now, and we do have a little list, so for both items. So just someone like to move these. So thanks, Desley. Second, Shane. Okay, so first up, Daniel.
Good morning. Thank you. I've got a couple of questions, if I may. The testing and commissioning and the rail network readiness, have any of the works to date identified failures or problems that you didn't foresee which have caused any delays?
Thank you, Councillor. I think there are always issues that crop up on any large complex project like this. You're sort of dealing with them every day. But as I said earlier, there are no showstoppers in there, nothing that we can't remedy or would affect our view of completion. But we will continue to have issues crop up and testing and sometimes retesting of things if the tests haven't gone according to plan. But at this point in time, nothing that's going to prevent us from completing the project.
I think that's a yes.
Well, maybe I'll just add something to that if I can. These projects often run into trouble towards the end as you bring the rail services on and you find out things that you can't really find out through testing. CRL has been very fortunate, and we've been able to test the rail now almost for 9 to 12 months prior to the commissioning of the station. So it's back to front compared to normal operations, and that gives us a lot more confidence that the things that can really go wrong in a project like this have not happened, so we don't have that big risk in front of us.
Okay, I've probably got 3 more through you, Chair, if I may. So in the earlier slide, we've got the remaining works concluding at the end of Q2. Then we've got a box which sort of bleeds into the Q3. How much bleed is there into the Q3? Is it how confident are you about the limit to that? I mean, it has to be handed over to AT and to, which I get, but I'm just wanting to get some sort of sense as to how far that box, which is going into Q3, is going to stretch. I
think you're referring to the chart I put up earlier, which shows a movement into Q3. Actually, at this point, we're still planning for 30 June. And at that point, then you're just seeking approvals for reaching what we call as a construction term practical completion that we can then hand over to Key Rail and AT. So just adding a little bit of time frame for those approvals that we will require from our board, from our sponsors, and also acceptance from Auckland Transport and Kiwi Rail. So that little period there after 30 June is just to allow time for that.
Okay, my two final questions, if I may. The operational readiness, progress and outcomes, the operational staff. So we've got 160 staff. Can I just understand, so the green one, the maintenance, 56 staff, that's around maintenance and cleaning. Then we've got in grey station staff, that's operational and security. Then we've got 15 staff to be recruited customer service. Can I just get an understanding of, are those roles completely separate? Is there any overlaps there? I mean, I'm not an expert, I'm not trying to catch you out, but I'd like to understand what they are.
They are all separate in the sense that they are a mix of roles that are employed by the contractors who are undertaking the work on behalf of us, so operating the station. And as you'll see, there's a small number of customer service staff who will be employed by Auckland Transport. So they man the front desks and operate in that space. You will appreciate that given the size of the stations and the frequency of the trains that will be occurring, there are a significant number of staff that will be required to ensure that it operates seamlessly.
Now, one final question, if I may, Chair, with your indulgence. So in the summer closure forthcoming, you've got from the 19th to the 26th, this is for pedestrian bridge work, so that will be the Te Mahia and the Takanini station. So can I understand during that period, that's the window for which the bridges themselves are being installed across on the pilings that's being built at the moment? That's the window for you. Are you going to hit those dates?
I'm not, it's a question
Yes,
I can, because I'm not building the bridges.
So we are on track with the program that we currently have to undertake the works during the Christmas block of line and Easter. In terms of the final completion, they subject to weather and geotechnical issues. They are on track.
Thank you. Greg.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to start off, Chair, by acknowledging the Chair of Auckland Transport being here and Chief Executive, and Steve Mutton also sits on the board from NZTA. Thank you for coming along, and also to the senior staff. And thank you for the presentations. I think you might have been touching on my question just a little earlier, and it's kind of in the context of, this project moving across to Auckland Transport and then potentially Auckland Transport, merging with Auckland Council. Obviously, this is part of the public transport, which kind of be its own division there, I guess. But in terms of because of all the testing, or the question arose, because all that amazing testing and thorough testing going through, there must be some specialist skills involved with that. And so those people, when we transfer across to Auckland Transport, they could be permanent FTEs, or they could be contractors, or could be a mix. They would need to come across to Auckland Transport. So just trying to understand, I guess, kind of from a budgetary point of view, how many, is that assumption correct, that those staff need to transfer across to continue further testing? And obviously I would assume it's budgeted for, and then so Auckland Council at some point would have visibility of the need to have those staff, absorbed into Auckland Transport and funded for. So I guess the question is really about those specialist skills that need to come across and for the continuation.
So you're correct that there are specialist skills. In terms of visibility of the organisational design, it is too early for that. But in the Mayor's proposal that was released last week, CRL is indicated as remaining, through his proposal anyway, the CRL team within the ATCCO. But from our perspective at Auckland Transport, we can't really comment any further on that organisational design as it is working its way through the process at the moment. But we are very clear that those staff that are necessary to take the project to day one are currently remaining, and we are looking after them.
That's great, thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Desley.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, team. My question is to you, Patrick, and forgive me, but we're in public and you said it, so I'm just going to question you about it. You said that you hoped to keep within the budget envelope at the conclusion of the project, and I just want you to define hope. I mean, it's our expectation that you would. Can you just define hope for me, please?
Yes.
Think you will?
We would expect to, maybe expect is a better word, expect to stay within our approved funding envelope.
Fabulous, that's what I
Deputy
wanted to hear, thank you.
Thank you. Tote.
Thank you, Chair. I'm conscious of the ability to hopefully increase options for the punter out there to get from A to B to C to D, wherever. I want to ask a question about the Unehunga to West services running from off-peak to enable some sort of increase in services. When is that happening, or is it happening?
It is happening. It's proposed as part of our day one services when CRL
Sorry, bro, I can't hear you.
It is happening in terms of the off-peak increased links into the west, and that will happen with the opening of the CRL. That's the plan.
Oh, okay, so that will get me to my third or fourth question, very, very earlier. So when's that opening?
In the second half of 2026.
So any time in the last 6 months of 2026, I'll be able to go and jump on a train and do a loop and be happy.
I would expect so, yes.
Are you going to guarantee that I'm going to be happy? Okay, so is there going to be a big fanfare that you guys are going to say, publicly say this CRL is going to be open in the last 6 months of 2026, and we're not going to wait until 2027?
With CRL Limited and QRL, we've got a joint comms team, which is pulling together that plan right now in terms of the lead up to the opening, the allowing potentially the public to go through stations, for example, and any events on the actual opening itself. So that in terms of communications and special events and information for customers, there is a plan around that. And what I suggest for the next meeting, we potentially, with sponsor support, bring that plan to the meeting.
Can you give me a bit of a steer on the opening? Will it be before the election or after?
We have all been communicating with the sponsors, and it will be in the second half of 2026, we expect.
One last question. In all of the work, and it's great, and it's fantastic, what a great job that the team has done. And it will open up some new horizons for the public. Especially, I'm concerned at the south end and the west end, where a lot of the Māori community jump on and hopefully jump off. Has there been any consideration given to the opening up to passengers from Helensville to Henderson, so that they can be part of the wonderful line that is going in around us?
If I can give the first response, and we have been approached by interested parties there. Our Key Rail stance has been basically, until we have City Rail Link up and running and under our belt, we are not resourced or have the ability to think about extending the reach of the network. That can come later, but the money has to be, the time, investment, etc., has to go into the project we have in front of us. Our minds aren't close to it, but basically not now. Let's finish the job.
Thank you. Ken?
Thank you. A bit on the back of member Henry. How flexible after the start is the scheduling? Is the, depending on what you encounter? Had it pointed out to me, and I've tried to follow in the maps, but it's hard. West Aucklanders used to be able to get the train to Grafton, to the hospital, to Newmarket. When the CRL opens, it's going to take us straight into the CRL, which means Westies are going to have to change trains or a bus to get to Grafton, Newmarket or Parnell. Am I correct in that?
That is correct. Other than in the off-peak, you'd be able to take the Onehunga service direct to Grafton. But if you're taking the east-west service, that's correct, you'd have to transfer. But we need to remember this is a high-frequency network with connections every few minutes, particularly at those stations. So we did, a number of years ago, when we looked at the different service options, consider the pros and the cons, obviously, of different opportunities and what would be the most advantageous to the most people in terms of direct routes versus a necessity to transfer between trains in particular.
I did see the off-peak thing, but that was very marginal. My impression of when I look at this is the letter P. We've got a circular system helping everybody except the west, which is the stick to nowhere. I was, for 150 years of trains chugging along, we've been getting into the hospital in Newmarket, and now we have to change trains and buses. So is my question again, how much flexibility is once this is up and running and we've had a suck and see of this thing to make changes?
A lot of work has obviously gone into the design of the timetable, again, to maximise the benefit to the most number of people through the service design. There's only so many ways you can develop the design, but certainly there'll be train services in the off-peak every 20 minutes, train services in the peak every 10 minutes at least. So the connections are actually a lot more frequent than what you'd expect right now on the network. So that should facilitate those journeys to the hospital.
My point being that we just have to have interchanges more frequently. It's not about how quick it is, it's about the journey that I was asking the questions.
Correct. And for most journeys, the journey time will be faster for most people.
Okay, Julie.
Kia ora. Can I just get a sense from you, Chair? I had a couple of questions about the practical completion. Is it okay to ask about that? I know it's on the summary rather than hasn't been spoken to directly. Is that okay? Sweet. So, thank you very much. And it's great to think that in a year's time, some of us might have got here on those trains, going through the tunnels. I wanted to ask around the practical completion implications. Obviously, the delay, we've had a lot of information about how that's not going to have a knock-on effect on opening. That's great. What I wanted to understand was specifically for Mangawhau Station, we have an issue there around the development around the stations, and previous advice was that the titles for those sites could not really be all tidied up and confirmed until after practical completion. So do you have an understanding of whether that's still the case and whether there's a knock-on effect there? Obviously, there's a lot of interest in getting those sites to market so that this community in particular can get a better sense of what's going to happen there.
Councillor, it might be easiest if I answer that one.
Right.
The issues with titles around the sites don't impact the opening of CRL. If that was the question, the works are underway and being completed. The titles around the sites themselves have to do with taking to the market and so forth, which is a separate matter and being dealt with not by CRL. Council.
So Thanks, Barry. The previous advice I'd been given was that titles couldn't be issued until as much as potentially a year after practical completion. So that's why I'm worried about that. Maybe we need to take that offline. That's fine.
Yes, we can take it offline. I don't think that stands at the moment, that timeframe, but yeah.
Okay.
let's-
Thank you.
take
I'll
that
follow that up separately. The other thing is the opportunity potentially for Mangawhau Station around some pre-opening events that are around getting to know your station. I think it was being referred to potentially as Meet Your Station. The potential that it could be used to hold community events in it before it's operational, whether there could be a sneaky opportunity to use the Western Line platforms before everything's completed. So any comments that you would have on those opportunities and the implications of the practical completion push out? Thanks.
There's a lot in that question.
Yes, there is, sorry.
So probably the first one, there is a program potentially for station visits across the network, so that will form part of the communications plan that has been developed at the moment. In terms of activation, we have worked very closely, Auckland Transport and the Auckland Development Office. We have a plan for those activations and what that will look like on day one, and also noting that the development in and around that station could take some time, so that will be an ongoing process as the land around it gets developed. In terms of the opening of the platform, no, that not early, because there are a number of reasons for that.
Yeah, we have had that conversation before, but I keep getting asked it, so I was going to ask it again. Sorry about that. Just to note, you mentioned their activations after day one. I'm talking about the potential for activations prior to day one for the community to have access as a community space, not necessarily as a train station as such.
So in and around the station, in the station precinct, the likelihood of a long time before day one, but we are working as quickly as possible to activate that area. There are still some works that just need to be completed around pavements and those types of things, but in terms of getting it ready and actually starting those activations, we are working to a program that would as quickly as we can to do that.
Great, thank you. My second question was just around, sorry, I know that was one question with multiple parts. The next question is hopefully just one question, which is around the hardship fund, and whether that has been exhausted. How is that going, basically?
Councillor, good question. We've currently have about 1.4 million left on the targeted hardship fund. We're still processing applications, but as the works disruption reduces clearly, and that is happening with the urban realm completion and opening up some of the areas such as Albert Street and the Beresford Square entrance, then the number of applicants drops as well. But there's currently about 1.4 million left.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Alf.
Ata Māori ki a koe he mana to you, Chair. Good morning. And ata Māori e koutou katoa to everybody. Your first PowerPoint presentation, I'm going to go to the slide, well, the report first. And that report is said received September 2025 update. Is this the September 2025 update?
So this is the City Rail. Oh, this one.
So in our agenda, it's got received September 2025 update. I'm just asking, is this the 2025 update? My subsequent question would be, when are we going to receive the December one, if this is September? And then I've got another pathway on 8.1.
It's a typo, Alf, so you can relax. This is the most up to date. It's not the September one. So.
Okay, so it's up to date.
Absolutely.
Okay, so therefore then my question is this. I want to reassure the public in regards to the scare that happened about 6-7 days ago, and that's with the asbestos scare, that we have done everything that we can and there is no asbestos. Can I confirm that from you?
Councillor, if you're referring to the announcement we made recently and the doors, some of the doors in the stations were part of that asbestos review, we have two suppliers of these doors. They come from, mostly come from China. The testing that we did showed no levels of contamination, but nonetheless, we are replacing those doors. There's a plan to replace the doors. It just takes a bit of time, as you can imagine. There's over 100 doors to replace. So between the two suppliers, we're working very proactively with them to replace the doors. And the doors are tagged, so there's no risk of interference with the doors in terms of additional construction work. So we're protecting the workers and the site, and then working very proactively. I mean, there's a number of other projects around New Zealand, as you can imagine, impacted by this with the same suppliers. So it's just a case of gradually replacing the doors as soon as we can.
Kia ora. I want to go to 8.2 now. And my question is on slide 7 of 14, and that's the operational readiness. You've got in there the second bullet point, modifying the existing fleet to be compatible with CRL. I'll just wait till you get the papers. Yeah. And what you've got there is existing trains modified 72. Underneath you've got that as 58 completed and returned to service, but there's 14 to complete. So I'm just reconfirmed that there's 58, but there's still 14 to make up the 72. So the 72 haven't been completed. There's still 14 to go?
There are still 14 to go.
Okay. Can I also, it'll be on the same slide 7 or 14. Can you explain very briefly, if you can, around the modifying of the existing trains, how they're modified to fit the CRL? And when I say basic, I mean, I know that you may not know, it's just that I want to have a look to make sure that the modification doesn't have that much of an impact where safety becomes a concern. That's why I've asked the question.
I mean, the key aspect for modification is to ensure safety. So, and it's largely around the IT systems that sit within the trains. So it's making sure that they are compatible with the upgrades that have been done to the network. So the train doors can talk to the station and to the driver. So it's those types of modifications. But as part of the safety case for the whole project, the trains are we need to ensure that the trains are entirely safe to pass that safety test.
Kia ora. Just 3 more quick questions, Chair. It's slide 8 of 14, operational readiness progress. My first question is confirming that particular slide has indicated 35 staff down, training and recruitment.
Are you talking about the 35 station staff?
It's got station staff. I don't know whether that's negative 35 new station operational and security staff.
So the 35 are new station staff. That is the number.
Okay. So with the training and recruitment, you got 46 and 70%. What is the time frame to get those done, dusted, trained?
So it's been progressively done to ensure that it is ready for day one, but you don't need to have all of the staff. They are being progressively recruited because you wouldn't want to have all of the staff now when we are not ready to have them. So they will be recruited so that they are available and trained for day one.
Okay, my last one is that the modelling, do we have enough? Because everybody's saying that the CRL is going to be well used, there's going to be quite a few people. Do we have enough, especially staff, in regards to security of all CRL train stations?
So the answer is yes, on the basis of what has been modelled. There's some international models around numbers of staff, and there's also experience around how the existing network works. But obviously, from an operational perspective, all of those aspects of staffing are a continual process in terms of monitoring and making sure that they are working in the way that they should for customers.
Thank you. Sarah?
Kia ora. Can you hear me?
We can indeed. Well, you're breaking up a little bit.
I can't hear anything. Okay. I'll give it a go. First of all, I wanted to say big congratulations, because as these numbers and this information is really impressive. My question, I was also very excited by your real fake people trial. My question is, what's the work being done to ensure that the test passengers reflect all different kinds of experiences of taking public transport? So people with physical impairments, sensory impairments, intellectual disabilities, those kinds of things. Are they all going to be represented in those trial passengers? Hopefully you heard some of that.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I did, and yes, they will be. I think it's very important that we cover the wider community. For example, we have hearing loops in the stations underfloor, which will allow for those with hearing disabilities to hear different emergency response communications. So all of that is incredibly important to us and will be part of the emergency response testing. So in short, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Yes, kia ora. Just referring to the emergency readiness desktop that you did, and looking at the physical readiness for emergency services. Going by reports that FENS are underfunded, and the CRL does provide a unique objective for rescue and things like that, and confined spaces are certainly a problem. With the equipment that's required for emergency services here, and noting how they are underfunded, is this being provided by CRL, or is it on the stations to provide the necessary equipment?
Good question, Councillor. We have had some requests from Fire Emergency Services for equipment in the stations, just to allow the response team to get to an event earlier, and we've agreed to fund that equipment. It could be as simple as stretchers. There's a wide range of equipment that we are putting into each of the stations to assist, to allow easier access and quicker access to equipment that the emergency services may require. So yes, we are supporting them with that.
And just on that, are the FENS confident that the stations, in terms of manpower, either for the city centre or bordering stations, are going to be adequately trained for accessing these areas?
Yes, we've had a close involvement with the emergency services for quite a long time now. It'd be well over 2 years, and they've been coming in and out of the stations over that period of time, working very closely with them, and they've had full access to the stations and becoming familiar with them, and planning the emergency response testing, which, as I mentioned, will start in March this year. Wide range of tests, but no, and the collaboration and their preparedness, I think, is very high.
Okay, appreciate that. And last question is, along with the equipment, certainly all the oxygen canisters that they're required to use, the consequential OPEX or the ongoing maintenance of that equipment, whether or not that falls on the stations, or if that's something that's a partnership with the CRL Council and FENS.
Well, future OPEX is not within the domain of CRL, but that there will be just ongoing discussions, I assume, with emergency services, Auckland Transport, about their requirements.
Yeah, any equipment in the stations itself is covered under AT's forward OPEX budget, and obviously any equipment that FENS bring themselves is theirs.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt. Victoria?
Thank you. My question is in regards to calendar of closures. What work has been done to prepare freight companies and businesses who proactively use the freight line of the upcoming closure, and what have you projected the knock-on effects will be of the closure?
Clearly, we work with the freight companies well in advance. For some freight companies, it's a bit of a boon because they get to carry freight which would otherwise be on rail. We have set up in Hamilton and Frankton a CT site, so freight going south or north is exchanged there and put on trucks. We work with Auckland Transport in terms of traffic congestion over the period. We can cope over Christmas with 3 weeks of road bridging. Beyond that, we simply are unable to cope, which is why the 4th week we've got single line running for the freight. But it's fair to say we're pretty practiced at this now. We know what we can do. The freighties know what they can do. 3 weeks is the max.
Thank you.
John? Yeah, are these people able to answer questions on the operating cost going forward? You are, okay. I've found it really quite hard to follow this operating cost figure. It seems to jump around a bit, and there's been various figures that have been put out into the public that are a little confusing, and I'm not quite sure if this is because it's unique to this project, but I'd appreciate a little bit of clarity if you could get it. So, in normal big capital projects, and I think of one I'm a little familiar with, the Penlink project, for instance, where the operating costs essentially are going to be funded by tolling. So you've got a very distinct figure, or a relatively small figure in the scheme of things. With CRL, we've had this, this $265 million figure thrown around, and it includes the interest on the debt of construction. So are you able to clarify how that massive capital cost then gets slotted into the operating costs, given that debt or that construction cost has been accumulating over a decade, I assume? And is that unique to this project, because it doesn't seem to be the way operating costs are calculated in other big capital projects?
Perhaps through Chair, I might just address that briefly. There have been two numbers which I think have been bandied around or in the media. There's a lower one which, from memory, is about 46 million, 26 million, which is for the actual operating costs of the stations in the rail network. Then there's a higher number, which I think is 235 million. The difference between the two is that higher number includes depreciation and the interest on the debt for the project. So that's the difference between the two numbers. One is exclusive of debt and depreciation. The other is inclusive of that.
Okay, so to get to the one that includes the interest on the debt for the project, that interest obviously accrues yearly or whatever calculation is used to determine the the interest in any annual plan. So are you saying that big jump then is just with the finishing of the last year, because it should have been getting baked into all council finances up to this point?
That carries on, so it's debt, the debt that is to service the cost of servicing the debt there, plus the depreciation, so that carries on. Yep. Which I think is 126 million. 167 million. Sorry.
So the 167 is on the council share of the 5.5 billion, is it?
Correct.
Yeah, that's a bit misleading, isn't it? Yep. Okay, thank you. Mike.
Yeah, obviously public are becoming more and more impatient about how long this project is taking, and given some of us were present when the Prime Minister John Key of the day and the Mayor of the day Len Brown formally launched the construction. So it's the question. My questions will be to Kiwi Rail and to City Rail Link, when will this project be concluded? Now, so the first question is to Kiwi Rail, essentially in regard to the rail network rebuild. But so when will that be completed?
The invasive civil works associated with rail network rebuild complete in January.
So the rail network rebuild will be completed in January 2026?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just let me just finish.
Why are you, am I right? Somewhere
Can I finish answering the question,
just let
Councillor?
him finish.
Yeah. In Easter of 2026, we have to liven up 3 pieces of work that we've done, but that's not invasive, it's just signalling work, and we've got a couple of blocks of line in the middle. One is a precaution in case everything doesn't go as planned as at Christmas. What has to be remembered, there is still a legacy of works to be done on this network over the next 20 years. But we have been doing 20 years worth of work over the last 4. There's 25 years of renewals still to be done, but with nothing like the disruption that has been experienced.
Okay. Just linking it all together, because Kiwi Rail was once a rail operator, a passenger rail operator, and a particularly successful one in Wellington. However, you would be aware of the impact these constant closures have on rail patronage, and the whole point of the CRL is AT are suggesting that it's going to be a game changer, but if we're going to have ongoing interruptions and block of the lines, which seem to be almost unique to Auckland or New Zealand at least, but certainly not international practice, I think people want some surety about when, especially the ratepayers who will be paying for increased access charges and not getting access, when we will get to a steady state where the Auckland Rail network is available 24, well, not 24/7, but 365 days a year. Is there an end goal for that? Because that's only when that happens will we really have a proper functioning network, including the CRL.
I'm not aware of any network globally that is 100% available 365 days of the year. There are always works to be done. There is simply wear and tear. What we are putting in place is an arrangement whereby we basically become a night working operation. So we start work at 10 and finish at 4 a.m. There will be closures associated with level crossing closures, the major capital works. But I repeat the comment I've given, that the days of big network closures are over. We are very, very conscious of what this has done to patronage, and the patronage and fare box has to be given that chance to recover. That is what our maintenance process is going to be based on, recovery of fare box. But we are not going to let the network go backwards.
Can you explain for us, in this chart here you've got a breakdown of the work you've been doing, which is helpful: drainage, formation, rail, sleeper, blah, blah, blah. And it's in metres, so it looks a lot, but actually drainage 70 kilometres, and so on. So what is the difference between Auckland Metro Recovery Program and RNR?
The Metro Recovery Program was what was done when we had the issue with the rail cracking, the rolling contact fatigue. So much of the turnout work and rail replacement work was done at that stage. R&R is around the drainage, the formation. The R&R is around the rebuild of the fundamentals of the network, digging it up from scratch.
You don't see them as the same thing?
Well, I put them together because they are the same thing, but the R&R work is, to my mind, dealing with the absolute fundamentals of the thing. It's fixing the foundations of the house. And unless those foundations were fixed in the areas we have fixed them, we would have been unable to keep the speed restrictions at a level on the network that meant AT could not, I've probably got too many double negatives in there, AT would not have been able to run the timetable they want to run had we not fixed the foundations of the network so we could keep the track in good condition. That's what R&R was all about. It was driven around getting a timetable that would get the benefit of City Rail Link and get the rail patronage up.
You must agree that it's not ideal to routinely schedule a block of the lines, and could conceivably there'll be block of the lines after the CRL opens?
I think it's entirely possible there will be weekends where we have shuts on one line. The commitment we have given is that we will not see a full closure of the Auckland network again. There will be work having to be done on certain lines at some stages. That's what railways do. And you say it's unusual globally. I know a network that didn't do this, and it's called the Durchbahn, running now currently at 63% because it didn't get on and do the maintenance, and it just focused solely on the service. This is what a railway has to do. The issue is ensuring most of the work is done in hours when passengers are not using the line, which is 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. That's the operation we are becoming.
Yeah, I won't go into how much Kiwi Rail has been paid for access charges, but the cost of the CRL and rail is going to be more socially shared coming into our record rates increase coming up, because the CRL and related costs are going to be the headline item. I'll move now to CRL Limited, if I could, Mr. Chair. Question. In your presentation, you're talking about the difficulties and the challenges of testing, network testing and station testing. International experience informs you that most challenging phase. I wonder if you could help us in terms of explaining the difference between completing the CRL and opening the CRL. The opening of the CRL was going to be this year. It's put back to, any number of years in the past. But anyway, it's the second half of 2026. I think a few months ago it was 2026. So it's the second half. So there is a gap between completing and opening it to the public. Parliamentarians wrote on it in May this year, some months ago, but the public won't be able to write on it till late next year. So that's the opening day, sometime late next year. When will the project, the build, be completed? Are we allowed to know that? This is for CRL Limited. Patrick.
Yeah, Councillor, thank you. We have disclosed that the target project completion date that we have is the end of June, and that's what we're aiming for. We're going flat out for that, and we'll update of progress at these meetings and with our regular sponsor meetings, which are monthly. We have Minister Mayor meetings as well, which are now monthly, to update as we progress through some of the milestones that I outlined. As we achieve those or have challenges with those, we will inform the sponsors on a regular basis and be able to give updates on how we're progressing towards that end of June date.
And so the testing, there was a press release I read the other day about 13,000 plus tests to be done. They're still to be done. they're not the tests that have been done, or?
No, Councillor, we're the 16,000 tests approximately, and we're about 80% through those tests. So we still have a way to go, trying to get through them as quickly as we can.
77%.
At 80% through the
So
tests.
that must have been about 56,000 tests to get through.
No, the 16,000 is a total, and we're 80% through those 16,000. So that would leave 20%, which would be just over 3,000 tests.
Coming back to international experience, that doesn't seem to be normal to have such a delay in regard to complete. Well, I would assume a project is not completed until it is ready to use. But anyway, is that normal to have such a lag between completion, nominal completion, and fit for purpose for passenger use? Is that normal?
Absolutely, it's normal. So we've had a number of delegations internationally over the last 12 months or so, particularly from Melbourne and Sydney, where they emphasise building of confidence of the completed systems without passengers operating on them. And a number of the projects quoted, for example, 12 weeks of running. When the actual systems have been tested, it's called proof of operation or proof of trialling.
Yeah, just in terms of how long the project is taking, and this is really a CRL question, not AT. There's a lot of work going on in Australia, like there was the Melbourne Metro Tunnel that was 9 kilometres. A kilometre a year was 0.97 a year was the speed of work on that. We're a much slower. Sydney Rail Loop, half a year per kilometre. And that's the whole thing. Sydney Metro West, also half a year, and Sydney Metro West and Sydney Airport, 0.19 of a year per kilometres. This one is 3.4 kilometres, taken more than 10 years by the look of it. I don't think it's ideal, is it? Would you agree with that?
I think it's difficult to compare some projects, but obviously the business case was 2015. We announced the contract for the Link Alliance for the 3 stations in middle of 2019, and we were scheduled to finish at the end of 24 then. But obviously since then we had some additional scope, Councillor, if you recall, with Burford Square entrance, 9-car platforms, and platform screen doors, some additional scope that had to be incorporated into the design and the works. And then, of course, we had COVID. A lot of the Australian construction projects were able to continue through COVID. We could not. And we lost, we had 283 days, I think, where we were impacted by COVID, either lockdowns or the social distancing that was required then. And our Australian projects weren't impacted by that. So I'm not making excuses, but there are a lot of events that have contributed to the extra time required for this project.
COVID. It was international. It was a pandemic, and all of these projects, international projects, recently completed or ongoing, would have been affected. But we'll leave it at that. But I'll just make the point: time is money. Money is going to be an important consideration for us coming into the annual plan, because the headline reason for the record rates increase is the CRL, and if it's taking 3 years per kilometre and a couple of billion or whatever, that's a problem. So thank you.
Quite correct, time is money. Ken?
Thank you. Just one last one. Just to Mr. Potter, just can't make those figures add up. I did a quick AI check. I'm sure you're correct, but when I remember last term when we were negotiating or talking about the long-term plan, our debt ceiling had a big drop, and I thought that was when the government took over our part of the CRL debt. Tells me here that's not happening. So what my question is principal repayment built into any of those figures you talked about, or is it all just interest repayment? What is the interest we're paying, and is there any principal repayment?
Through the chair, look, I'll come back to you on some of that if I may, Councillor Turner, and respond to that with the finance team. There are a couple of things though. This has always been funded 50-50 Crown Council. That has been all the way through. So 50% of the cost is councils. And sorry, there was one other point in there.
Just the level of debt and the principal, the interest component and was there a principal component?
Let me come back to you and address that with you, if I may, with the finance team.
Okay, thank you. What made me think about it was when Councillor Watson spoke about the toll on Penlink. You know, I all of a sudden wondered how much of the ticket rate would actually pay back the debt. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No more questions, so you can step back. Thanks, team. And Dave, just a big thank you to your staff who are going to be pretty much working over the rest of the time when most other people will be having a little bit of a break. Won't be 7 weeks. But thank you for that. And to Pat and John, keep up the good work. We'll get there. So it's been moved into any debate, any discussion? Alf.
Just wanted to acknowledge the staff, Chair, and look, the issue for me, and it's always going to be an issue until we get it right, and that's the safety of our people who use the CRL. I, along with everybody else, look forward to it, and I also look forward to, and I'm speaking with about this with the colleagues around this table, I look forward to the budget bid and either annual plan or long-term plan for transport officers. I have been fortunate enough to sort of travel to France, travel to Hawaii, travel to London, travel to China and use the underground systems, but also other countries. And I look, we have to get this right. And the transport officers, security staff that was mentioned in these reports, we have to get this right in regards to our community. So I know we're only receiving both of those, but I just needed to put that on the table because I'm going to continue to make sure that our transport officers and security staff are deployed in the CRL. Kilda.
Thank you. Okay, no one else got anything to say? So it's been moved and seconded. We'll put it, those in favour say aye. Aye. And against? Carried. Thank you. We'll take our 5-minute break. 5 minutes late. 5 minutes.